he was searching for an offensive coordinator, and we were talking about names, and like it kind of got quiet, and he's like, you know what would be really cool? And I like cut him off. I was like, if I did it. He's like, yeah, but like you couldn't. But what if you could? I was like, if I could, I would in a heartbeat.
Week one, it's officially in the books a little later than will be traditionally in college football. Hello and welcome back. Or for some of you new ones, welcome to Y Option, your home for insightful and thoughtful conversation in college football. I'm your host, Yogi Roth. As always, every one of our conversations are presented by our founding sponsor, fueling all of these conversations, 76, keeping you on the go, 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 so you never miss a beat. Tell you what, there were a lot of games. Thursday to Monday, you couldn't miss a beat. I felt like I didn't sleep because you're just watching games all of the time, which leads us to our conversation today. I don't necessarily just want to review the games that happened in week one or just preview the games that are happening in week two. We will do that in the afterglow. We'll give you a version of that. But in between, I'll bring you one of my favorite conversations that I've had here at Y Options. It's with Luke Del Rio. You know that last name. For some of you at Oregon State, at Alabama, at Florida, you know that first name because he was a quarterback. If you follow the quarterback position, you know Luke Del Rio, who was an Elite 11 finalist way back in the day in the class of Christian Hackenberg and Jared Goff. Well, to me, he's the most interesting coach in all of college football. Whoa, what does that mean, Yogi? Why would you say that? Well, Luke Del Rio not only has been coaching in the NFL, he's done that for a few times. Last year, he joined Jed Fisher's staff at Washington. If you follow me, you know that I'm a minority owner in your new favorite football team, the Paris Musketeers. And this past season in Europe, Luke Del Rio was the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach for your Paris Musketeers. It was really unique in how it happened. Talked to Jed Fish, and Jed Fish said, you know what? Coaching development, let alone player development, is very important within the walls of his program up in Seattle. So he basically loaned out Luke to the Paris Musketeers for the summer and the spring. He flew over, took his wife, his two kids, moved over to be the OC under his father, Jack Del Rio, who is our head coach in Paris. Luke and I caught up on his final night in Paris to reflect on a unique, bespoke experience in his football journey. He's seen so much as the son of a two-time NFL head coach and one of the elite players in the NFL, and of course at USC as an All-American linebacker. And I think for all the young coaches out there, older coaches out there, people that are coaching their kids in anything that you'll do, it's gonna be a really refreshing listen to the path of Luke Del Rio, getting uncomfortable to find and recapture a different and maybe new lens on the game in which we all love. And yes, you guessed it, because here we are in college football season. He made his way back to UW after our season completed in Paris, and he's still on the staff at Washington doing really special things. I think he's an absolute riser in the coaching profession. He was an offensive coordinator for us in Paris. He might be an offensive coordinator for your favorite team next year in the United States. We'll see where his path goes. But in the meantime, enjoy this conversation with Luke Del Rio. And afterwards, stick around. Jim Thornby and I dive into all things college football after week one, heading into week two. And as mentioned, your favorite team's offensive coordinator. That's right. No, not just Washington fans. Luke Del Rio, yes, he's on your staff now, but he was on our staff then, the Paris Musketeers. Luke, I've known you for a long time. Thanks for making time on what I believe is your final night in Paris before you fly on back to Seattle. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. I appreciate Yogi. Yeah, last night in France, we fly back tomorrow. One-way trip to Seattle with two kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So here we go.
Hey, nothing you can't handle after just navigating your first season in the European League of Football. A dear friend of mine and a guy who I know you have great regard for, Chris Peterson, told me a quote a long time ago when he said what he would reference to players on their visits. He would say, quote, "The only thing I can guarantee you is that your path is not going to go as you envision it." As we sit here, I see you at like an Ohio high school and an Elite 11 camp next to like Malik Zaire and Shane Morris right now. And then the Elite 11 finals. Like I could see it like it was yesterday. Can you even put into context like your football path? And I'd be curious how you might describe it as you sit in Paris.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up that regional. I actually remember a lot about that day. I think the way you put it to start there is very accurate. It never really goes how you think it's going to go, how you probably want it to go, but it's almost definitely better than how you envisioned it. It's I grew up. My dad is an NFL head coach, and I had a lot of advantages that way. But you also get thrown a lot of negatives that are equally as unique. He played linebacker. I wanted to play quarterback, and I was just trying to get my first offer. And I go to the Elite 11, and it was kind of a long shot. I had no offers. I go there, and there's a Notre Dame commit, a Michigan commit. Um, Mitchell Trubisky was actually at that camp. I didn't even know that at the time. And Ohio State had like a dual threat athlete commit as well there, who ended up playing wide receiver. He's a really good player. And I remember throwing and kind of being like, I could play with these guys. And then this super energetic, positive, man with a microphone came up and was like, "Hey, there's kind of a buzz about you," and came up with the camera. And there I met Yogi Roth, and we've known each other ever since. And it's just been a wild journey. And now I'm coaching or just got done coaching in Paris, which I never thought that I would do. I never thought I would coach anywhere in Europe. My career trajectory was going to be play in the NFL, win Super Bowls, maybe coach in the NFL, win some Super Bowls, retire. Like easy done. But, you know, life had other plans. And that sounds kind of boring now that I think about it.
I love that you said that because a lot of quarterbacks in high school and their parents listen to this. I got stopped literally after being at Washington a couple weeks ago in training camp by a family who listens to this show and had me sign the book Five Star QB, which is ultimately like a version of what you just said. If like it's going to go in a bunch of different ways, how you navigate it will be your secret sauce in life. You've navigated, man. It's been so incredible for me to observe, right? From the Elite 11, as you referenced, to colleges, because you went Bama, Oregon State. I remember calling your games back in the day. And then you finish as a starting quarterback at Florida. And then you have this road, coach, media. I remember meeting up in New York City. I think you might have been working for Gary Vee at the time. And then you've dialed in this coaching world. And it's just been fun to watch you give yourself the freedom and flexibility to navigate life. I'm curious if you were conscious about that thought, or if that's just kind of how life happened to take you.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because when you look back at the journey, it's kind of like, a little almost like don't know what you're doing, don't know what, your career plan is. And I think that's the point. Like nobody really does. Like when they get done with college, when they get done with playing, especially, you see this a lot with NFL players. I mean, I remember when I coached with the Commanders in the NFL, these guys are terrified. They have no idea what they're going to do after they get done playing. They're millionaires and they just wrapped up a 10-year career where they made Pro Bowls and they were the man. And that's going to get taken from them. So I really, it's just what did I feel I was most passionate about at the moment and how can I go all in on it? And when I first got done playing, my playing career wrapped up in a way that, you know, football and I were in a really tough spot. When I broke my collarbone, my last playing at Florida, I didn't touch a football for a year and a half, and I didn't want to. And I have footballs all over my house. Like I have game balls and NFL balls, and it was a conscious effort to not even want to touch a football, just because it was a very rough ending to what I thought. I thought I'd earned it, and I thought I'd earned the happy ending. And it was kind of a crescendo of disappointment at the end. But it's just such a small chapter in the greater scheme of things. And I knew what coaching looked like because I grew up, I know how much I saw my dad. I know how much we had to move. So I was like, well, let me try something else. So we met up in New York and I was working in a FinTech company, business to business transaction, and it's just as boring as it sounds. And I remember dabbling in media and really enjoying it, like really enjoying it. And I loved talking football and I loved keeping up with not just NFL, but college and how the Gators were doing and all of that. And I remember my boss at my fintech company was like, "Hey, like you're good at this job and you're not in trouble. You'll be fine. But I can tell you're way more passionate about football. He goes, you're 24. Why don't you do that? You don't have
Mm.
to, but how about you do that? And it was great because it kind of gave me like the freedom, like, hey, it's okay. Like you can pursue it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's okay. And then I got into coaching, and actually my first year was out in California in the trainee league where Bryce Young was a senior and DJU was a senior, and that was a tough league to be in.
Well, all right, let's flip it to the league you just completed coaching in, which is also a pretty tough league, the European League of Football. Not a lot of people know about it. When you say, "Hey, there's a football team in Paris," they often say, "Oh yeah, like a soccer team, right?" That happens all the time. I've been a part of this team. I'm a minority owner in this team, and just to set the context for the viewer and the listener here at Y Option, uh, we're looking for a head coach. Our head coach took a job in major college football as a defensive coordinator, and it's kind of late in the game. So we're kind of going through the process. And among all the owners, I'm the one who like lives college football every day. So I'm just like scrolling through my phone and I'm just calling guys, hey, what are you up to? Are you still coaching? And you not want to coach? And like there's a certain personality that I think would go take that job. And I stumble across your dad's name and I call a mutual friend of ours, Brendan Carroll, a guy who you worked with last year, who he's now with the Raiders. And we just talk it out. And he's like, yeah, you should call him, give it a shot. And I was like, yeah. So I called Jack. It takes about 12 hours and he's all in. You have a sister who lives in Italy. He wasn't coaching at the time. He takes the job to coach in Paris. I call you, and I think it's like there's no chance you'll be interested in it. And I think we might even been like, hey, do you want the head job? Like, you want to, what are you interested in? And I get it. Like your age, you reference your two young, beautiful kids and your wife. And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, Jed Fish is like, yeah, this is a cool idea. Like, let's almost like loan Luke out, like you're literally in soccer. Go over to Europe, call plays, be in that role that you hadn't been in since you were coaching in the Trinity League in high school, and then come on back for the season, which you're clearly about to do. And by the time this airs, you are currently doing. So, with that context there, how has your experience been as a play caller in a foreign land in a league that you might not have known even existed if it wasn't probably for our relationship on Instagram?
That's right. That's right. This is going to be a long answer, so I'm
Ready
sorry
for it.
already
Ready
for
for it.
for rambling. But yeah, so you called, and the first answer was like, dude, no, like I can't do that. Like, are you crazy? It was originally brought to me, and then I said no. And I remember you talked to my dad, and my dad called me. He's like, what do you think? I was like, I think you should do it. He's like, well, why don't you do it? I was like, because I can't do it. I have young kids, and I work for UW, and like, I can't do it. Like, he's like, yeah, I get that. I think I'm going to do it. So, he agreed to do it. And then he was searching for an offensive coordinator. And we were talking about names, and like, it kind of got quiet. And he's like, you know what would be really cool? And I like cut him off. I was like, if I did it. He's like, yeah, but like you couldn't. But what if you could? I was like, if I could, I would in a heartbeat. And he goes, well, let's see what Jed says. It's like, there's no way. There's no way that he's gonna let me leave the program. I work for him. I feel like I do a lot for them, and help out in any way I can. Like, are you just gonna like let one of your employees leave and then come back? So I get news from you. I think a couple days later, it's like, hey, I think Jed's pretty open to it. Like, Yogi, dude, there's no way. So I go and talk to Jed. He's like, I'm open to it. I think it'd be awesome. I think it'd be a great experience. I think you get to coach with your dad. You get to live in Europe. You get play calling experience. I think it only grows your resume and your experience of play calling and sitting in that seat and understanding. And like, boy, was he right. And we'll talk about it more. um he's like, yeah, so when the season gets done, just come back. So you'll be back like by the start of training camp, right? And I was like, no. Like, if we make the championship game, I'll miss 3 games minimum. He's like, ooh, but what if you don't make the playoffs? I was like, I'll miss all of training camp. He's like, wow, well, I did already say yes. Yeah, I guess I'll see you when I see you. And that was
Wow.
it. So it was. I'm so grateful for Jed Fish for letting me have done this, not only for the professional development, but just the human side of it. And getting to coach with my dad. I mean, we just had dinner in my little city of Angoulême and at the bistro, and it's so cool, so cool. We're just talking about the different experiences we had experiencing pass check, which. the viewers probably have no idea what that is, but it'll be hilarious to describe because they won't believe it. And all of the, not only, yes, it's European football, but he's the head coach. I'm the offensive coordinator. And what is that dynamic like? And does it ever get kind of the gray area of like, is this my dad talking or is this the head coach talking? And how do you navigate that? And there were times when it was like, I can't tell which one's talking right now. So, um, and there's some good stories there too, but just an incredible experience. It's very hard to explain. Like when people ask, what was it like? Like just saying it was great or amazing, like it really doesn't do it justice. It was such a long time we were here. I moved my wife and two kids, and we lived here. I mean, our life was here for the last 5+ months. And the hardest part, and the reason I got so emotional after our last game is I won't ever see these players again, most likely. I mean, I just won't. I'm not coming back. These guys live in France. They play for France. And you pour so much into every team every year, and especially when you're the offensive coordinator, it's your plays, it's your vision, it's your vocabulary, it's your message, whatever the motive of the team is each week, especially the offense. That's what you're doing, and they really take a hold of your personality, and just an unbelievable, incredible experience. And I have nobody to thank, especially more than you and Jed Fish. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that. Many other people make it happen, notably you guys. Two follow ups to that, if you don't mind, Luke. One, I want to go to the football side. I think we hear it. I hear it as a broadcaster all the time when coordinator becomes a head coach for the first time, and they always say a version of "you don't know what the seat is like until you're in it." I also think there's a version of that when you go from GA to running your room, from running your room to running a side of the ball. What was that like? Because not only were you calling it for the first time, you're calling it at a professional level. And I think it's a lot more, it's better football than people probably think. It's their job. Like these guys have real jobs, like during the day, but then they come and they get paid. They want to do it. It's the highest level of Europe outside of the United States of America. I think it'd be competitive with what goes on in the CFL. Look, who the coaching staff is, and you and your dad being two obviously notable ones. There's other ones. Just go with the league, and you'll see Jim Thomasula, Norm Chow. Like you'll see names that are recognized from the U.S. Rip Shear was a dear friend who was coaching Madrid a year ago. So I just want to know, like, what was that experience like for you? Like running a room, and oh, by the way, English not the first language for 90% of the team.
Yeah, that's a great point. So first of all, the football is very good here, especially with the top 3, 4 teams. I mean, it's legit schemes with really good players that I think if it was just it's more of an exposure problem than anything. A lot of guys could have played in Division 1 football. I mean, Stuttgart has two defensive linemen and 3 defensive backs that could easily play Division 1. We just played Vienna. Their two defensive tackles were 6'7", 310, and 6'5", 330, and really good players. I mean, they are full size NFL scheme, NFL rules, NFL football. I was taken back. We opened the season with the defending champions, Ryan Fire, who Jim Tomsula, runs that team. He had to take a step back this year, but it is his scheme. It's his players. It's all of that. And I was blown away early in the game. Like these guys are good. We ended up losing that game by 2, but going from not being a coordinator, running a room, being a quality control, whatever it is, to being in that seat, it is. It's very hard. I remember talking to Marcus Arroyo, and he's like, it's until you do it, like it's really hard to understand what it is. And it's so true. Any one aspect of it is not hard to grasp. It's the totality of it. And it's week after week and day after day, and each decision, everybody's looking at you like, hey, how are we going to score points this week? How do we move the ball against them? How do you want to format practice in regards to how many reps do the ones take, do the twos take? Do we get enough reps at this? How much more work do we really want to try? Are we being stubborn with this concept, or is it something we can get better at? Okay, I know we want to be this. Are we good at that? or is that just what we want to be? And that's something that we actually had to come to grips with this year. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to be, and everybody does every year. And about week 4, it was like, okay, that's great. We're not good at that. So let's do this because this is what we do well. And our offense just took off after that. So you hear that all the time coming up, like, hey, if a good play run poorly is a bad play. And it's true. Like Bill Belichick says, players win games and coaches lose games. Like it's basically saying the same thing. It's whatever they do well. It's whatever they're comfortable with.
Mm.
So finding that flexibility and finding that malleability within game planning and throughout the week. And we got to the day before the game, and our ex receiver's knee just blew up, and he couldn't play. And a lot of the game plan was for him.
Mm.
It's kind of like, what are we going to do? Because it's too late to add plays, and if you just plug a guy in, well, like, do you really want to throw that guy 20 passes? Like, not really. So there's so many lessons like each week, and managing a staff, and how much do you delegate, and how much is too much where it's not really your offense anymore. And just such an incredible experience. And again, like, I feel like I'm explaining it okay right now, but it's really not even doing it justice because you kind of have to do it.
Go here, go there, go anywhere with 76.
Yeah, you kind of, I mean, there's so many fun follow-ups. I mean, I coach my kids' flag team, and when you call a play and the kids do it and they score, like, I don't care if it's for 10-year-olds in Paris, at Washington, in the league, like, there's something, and Marcus said that. Marcus Royo, he and his wife and me and my wife, we went to one of the early games of the season, and I want to get to that in a minute because it was really a memorable time for I think all of us. And we're on the sidelines in our home stadium, and you look back and like the the quote unquote student section of the Musketeers is awesome, but it's not like it's standing room only at Husky Stadium in advance of playing Oregon. And he looks at me and he goes, and he looked at you and your dad. He goes, it doesn't matter. Because if you're a coach and you put the headset on and you're on the field and you're scheming and you're competing, like, it doesn't matter. It's just like the Super Bowl or just like the CFP for you. I assume that's true as you nod your head.
Yeah,
Accurate?
yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
absolutely true. We played in front of, I mean, 100 people this year. To our last game was probably 7,000, which is pretty good. It's pretty loud for ELF. Yeah, once you put the headset on, it's like you're in the submarine with everybody else, and it's go time.
that's cool. Okay, so one of my favorite memories, I might argue my favorite memory of the whole season, our final game of the season, it was basically winner, go home. And it was an awesome game. It comes down to right at the very end, go into overtime, and we have a play call, and it's fourth in the game. And if you're watching the TV copy, it pans over, and it's you and your dad. And I love that for many reasons. My favorite reason, and I sent you a note after the game, is you call the play. He seemingly asks you, what did you call? You tell him what you called. And he kind of looks away. And I get the chills thinking about it because I can only imagine doing something like this with my son one day or a version of this. And he just kind of smirks to himself. And in my mind, he's saying, how cool is this? Like, I'm so proud of my kid and what we've built. And yeah, it's going to come down to the last play. All right, let's cut it loose. I don't know what it was like, but you experienced that. I'm curious as the son in that moment, if it was anywhere near what I saw through a TV screen.
Yeah, I actually getting emotional now thinking about it. I actually talked to him about it tonight, and I talked about the message that you sent us or sent me. I showed him the screenshot that I sent you of the TV because it's on the broadcast, and it showed my dad walk up to me, and you know you correctly guess. He's like, "Hey, are we throwing it to Hugo here? He's about a 6'2", 210 French wide receiver. Is a really good player, really really good player." And I said, we're going to A Mitch over the middle. He's our American wide receiver. And then Hugo's the second read. We also have Anthony Mahungu's 6'3", 6'4", wide out played at Purdue on the backside. I could feel the like, okay, let's do it. And I don't think he even said it, but it was like, all right, let's go. It was 4th and 14. The odds aren't great there. And I remember feeling in the moment like, our quarterback was really, really beat up. I found out today he was playing with a fractured eye socket and a broken right hand
Oh my
for
God.
that whole second half. Um, so already didn't want to throw the ball very much, but 4th and 14, kind of have to. And I didn't know he had a broken hand, by the way, or a broken eye socket. But in that moment, it was just like a kind of a. I remember Gene Chizik said this about Auburn before they kicked the game-winning field goal with Cam Newton. Just like what a journey, like what an experience, like what a cool, incredible 5, 6 months spent with my dad and all of these players and all these coaches, and they moved their families over here, and we went on this. We're playing in Austria right now. Never even I couldn't even point to Austria on a map, 5 months ago, much less a week ago. This is the best team in the league. It's the best team we've played, and this is in overtime. And if we score, we're going to go for two and we're going to win. I hope we get it. And if we don't, it's okay. And it was incredible.
We went to that game that I referenced. My wife and I went over, quick little getaway, and Jason Johnson, who is primary owner of the team, former quarterback at Arizona, a guy I just adore. His grandfather, Frosty Westring, is one of the most successful coaches in the history of football. Coached D3 football up in Seattle, and he wrote a book called "Make the Big Time Where You Are." Make the big time where you are, which I think that in and of itself like sets the tone for life in general, especially a competitive one. To that point, he created this term called the afterglow, meaning when games would end, he wouldn't let his team race in and out of the locker room to see their parents, their friends, their partners, their siblings, whatever. He said, no, you're going to stay here, win or lose or draw, and you're going to sit in it. You're going to sit in the afterglow. And I say that because for the last decade or so, Jason's kind of created this retreat of sorts where a lot of those principles from his grandfather are part of it. And when we were in Paris, you, your dad, the staff, other coaches, their families, we all came out. And if you've ever been to Paris, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, just imagine like a big plaza and people hanging out and sharing a good time, good meal, good drinks. And I remember those 2 nights more than any snap um, of the game that we were at, Luke. And I can remember you talking to my wife, talking to your kids, your wife, etc. And to me, in that moment of those couple nights, it was like, this is what I hope you feel. I'm curious as you're putting a bow on this chapter in your life, like what did the season feel like? Like, was it a version of an afterglow? Was it a version of making the big time where you are? Like, how do you net out when you describe the experience?
Yeah, I love that term, afterglow. When you think about your playing career, my playing career, and now my coaching career, and yours as a broadcaster, and obviously you're involved with our team, those are really what you remember. It's funny, you mentioned that game that you came to against Stuttgart week 2. I don't remember a single play I called, but I remember that night, and I remember a lot of things we talked about, me and you, and me and your wife, and me and Marcus, and I remember when I got to eat, but I don't remember what play I called. So, Sean McVay, kudos to you on that one. You know every play you called. Um, but I just think that it just goes to show, like that's really more of what's important. It's more of what's valuable and real and true. Football is really just a vessel to experience emotion and humanity at like its highest form. And I really felt that at the end of our last game, and I was shocked at how emotional I got at the end of our game, and I could like barely talk to the offense. I mean, I was like weeping, and it was just like I won't see these guys again, and I know the effort that they put into it, and I know what I put into it. The care that you develop for these guys, and the humanity that you pour into it, and the bond that you make, like that's real. Like that's worthwhile. And I remember feeling, and I felt this more each year. It's like I'm so grateful for the game of football because there's so few things in life that expose you to things like that, expose you to moments like that. And that 4th and 14 was a in-game glimpse of that. It's just like, man, this is so cool. And
Mm.
the drive before to take the lead, it was 3rd and 3, and we had just been running for you football heights out there, we've been running duo and power and counter and duo and weak inside zone with the wing backside and just like smashing them. And it was 3rd and 3, and we put in our blocking wide receiver and we motioned him inside of the wing. And everybody that knows football knows this is about to be duo. It's a run play and it's like, stop us, basically. They knew it and we knew it. And I remember saying on the headset, this play is going to be so awesome. Like whether we get it or not, like there's some guys that are gonna just lay it on the line right here. And it was a 20-person car crash, which sounds bad for people that don't play football. It was awesome. And we actually scored on the play. And I would have been fine with the first down. It actually would have been better if we just got a first down, went down. But we scored on it. And like the touchdown's cool. But just the fact that like in that moment, like everybody knew, the fans probably knew too, like, okay, here we go. You just
Yeah.
don't, I just don't think you get that in quote unquote regular civilian life.
Yeah. All right. Let's get you out on this because I know you got a long flight upcoming. Coaching, at least from my purview, you've lived it. I think we see it the same. It can be a really stressful environment, and it's a taxing one on everybody involved. And you sign up for it, right? No crying on the yacht, right? As our friend Chip Kelly would say. Also, a big fan of the Musketeers. To that point, how do you think this experience has changed you, will change you as a coach coming back into the sport that it sounds like maybe you even fell deeper in love with overseas? I don't want to put that, those words on you. I want you to disagree if you do. Uh, but I'm curious, like, clearly it's impacted you. How do you think it's changed you as a leader of men as you get back into like traditional American college football?
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I think in so many ways it's hard to articulate one or two. You know, when you're not the coordinator, like just help. You know what I mean? Just help the cause and for lack of a better term, like stay out of the way. Like the coordinator has so much on his plate. The head coach has so much on his plate. Like just do the best you can, help in any way you can, and don't create problems. I know that's kind of a negative way of putting it, but it's true. The connection side of things, I think you feel more the higher you get. You definitely feel it as a position coach, but I think you feel the buy-in more as a coordinator and as a head coach. I haven't been a head coach yet, but I would imagine that's the case. And just the totality, you feel the weight of the commitment that everybody gives the higher you go. Because they're kind of doing it for you. They're doing it for the team, but it's you and then into the team. So yeah, all of those things are definitely something I'm going to take with me.
That's cool. I know the Musketeers had an impact on you, as you've referenced in our conversations off air and this one. What would be a message you'd want to give to? You talked to the team already. You described that, but if it was one more to the fan base, the growing community as the ELF continues to evolve, what might you say if there was a final message from Luke Del Rio?
I would say I loved my time here. Football is still a young sport in this country. That does not mean that they are lacking for passion, though. We watched the PSG final game when we were in Frankfurt, which was such a cool experience. We watched it with the whole team, and you could see it was unbelievable. Every goal, they were reacting like it was the game winner, and the time expired, and like they won the championship. And it was like 1-0, 12 minutes into the game. Like, guys, there's a lot of game left. The passion for sport is here. It is in Europe. And I think Germany is probably a little further ahead just because they've had it a little bit longer. It, I leave knowing for a fact that football can thrive in Europe. It just needs more eyes on it. It just needs more time, to spread. But it's not like they don't like sports here. They love sports here, and I'm forever grateful for my time here and my family's time here. We definitely do miss America, just with the youngins, but and it's what we grew up experiencing. But the um, the thirst for competitive sports is very strong here.
I got a feeling there's summer trips back to Paris for the Del Rio clan for the foreseeable future. And maybe, who knows, like 20 years from now, maybe you come on back and coach your kid. Jason and I talk about it all the time. We're like, dude, in like 15 years, like we're gonna coach wideouts over there. Like we're gonna just do it. We're gonna live there. Our kids are gonna play, like whatever it might be. And I know that whenever we have a clinic, a game, you have it. I look forward to seeing you there, watching your family grow now as a part of this team forever. And as one of the guys in the ground floor with the Musketeers, I want to thank you for everything you did because you went for it, man. And it was fun to watch you evolve throughout it all as someone who's one of your dear friends and has known you since you were 15. So thank you. I want to just say that. And I'm always rooting for you. And I do believe, Luke, I do think this experience for all those ADs out there, it's going to change you in the most positive way. And not that you needed a lot of change, but it's just going to be a different level of compassion, empathy, emotional intelligence, life experience that adds to your coaching resume. And I'm excited to watch it this fall. It's already happening here at UW, and who knows where it goes from here.
So I'll leave you with this, and I appreciate that kind note. I think you'll really like this too. It was and I told you this the last time we were on the phone, but I think it's worth mentioning now. I was talking to my wife 2, 3 weeks ago. She's like, "What are we gonna do when we get back to the States? You know, you've been so invested in this, and you've given so much, and it's a lot of hours. I mean, people think European football, oh, you're in Paris all day, and then you go to practice at night. Like, no, 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 no. It's legit, it's legit hours. As you can tell, I probably look pretty tired right now. But so when we get back to the States, like, can you just remember, like, enjoy the ride or do something else? And it's so true. Enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the ride because you have no control over it, or do something else. And I have no plan on doing anything else.
Amen. Enjoy the ride. I love that. Enjoy your flight with those two little ones. Can't wait to see you this fall. Luke, thank you for the time on your final night in one of the greatest cities on planet Earth.
Thanks, Yogi. See you,
All
man.
right, there you got it. There it is. Luke Del Rio. It is the Afterglow, folks. What is happening? That is Jim Thornby. I am Yogi Roth. That was Luke Del Rio of your new favorite team, the Paris Musketeers. You want to go to a game? DM me. We'll hook you up. Get to Paris, Jim. How many years in a row can I tell you to do it? Of course, big love to our team from 76, our founding sponsor, keeping you on the go, 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 so you never miss a beat. Jim, week one feels like it just keeps going. Thankfully, it's over. AP poll is out. Do you want to address why you haven't been to Paris yet? Like, you want to go there?
Well, maybe not. Maybe next summer. Next summer is the 20th me and my wife's 20th anniversary. So maybe that can.
Okay, Jason
that I don't.
Johnson. Get him a box, Jason. Get him a box.
The convincing her on a football game might be a strong push, but
surprise her on the football game. We'll get a little car service for you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. But yeah, for week one, I mean, talk about not missing a beat. Like it was kind of like all over the place, and I tried a different approach because normally the last few years on Saturdays, I kind of sit here right where I'm sitting right now on this screen that I'm looking at. I've got like 7 different windows up and trying to pay attention. And I was like, you know what? Let's try a little bit more relaxed approach, and let's just watch on the regular TV, and just kind of be into the game that you're into. When that game goes to commercial or it gets boring, you flip to a different game, whatever like that. So it was a different reality. I would probably watch some more games closer than I probably would have ever necessarily in the past, like that Alabama Florida State game. I probably watched more of that game than I would have in the past. Even though I think a good portion of that was because it seemed like every single West Coast team played, with the exception of the USC game and the Oregon game that were on Big Ten Network. It seemed like every other team was playing at like 7 o'clock or later. So that was fun. I'm trying to
check out Jim's Twitter handle.
Yeah. I remember some things about that, but yeah, it was interesting. And as we're taping this on Tuesday morning, this is the only week of the season where the AP poll comes out on Tuesday, obviously because there was a Monday night game. Usually it comes out on Sunday morning. Once you get around Halloween, then on Tuesdays you'll get the CFP poll. But normally you have, by Tuesday, you've already kind of fully digested the AP poll and you're really already kind of moving on. But now that this has kind of happened, and it feels like there was such a reaction to what happened on Saturday in several different places that I think, we can go through it as a whole. But my one thing to say is I don't know if anybody yet is eliminated from the CFP. Like within reason. Like anybody that you thought maybe could have made the CFP at the beginning of the year, there's nothing that happened on Saturday that eliminates them. Whether that's Alabama or whoever, like
Boise State.
or Boise, yeah, exactly. Or even Oregon State with their loss to Cal. I mean, if they run the table, they could be right there in the mix with that. But these teams are going to have to play a lot better. But the reaction around Alabama, and granted, like I said, I watched more of that game than I would ever have watched in the past. They did not play well. It felt like Ty Simpson was kind of running around for his life. Ryan Williams had the worst game that I've watched him play with the drops, and just as you've seen over probably the last few days on social media, people putting out clips of here and there of what didn't look like great effort on a few plays by the defense. But this is still a very talented Alabama team that if you said they win 9, 10, who knows, maybe even 11 games, like they're going to be right there in that conversation for the CFP, regardless of what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, the brand thing is still real, right? It just is. Like you go watch Cal, to your point, they beat Oregon State. Jaron, are you kidding me? Sagapolatelli, right?
Sangapolutele, yeah.
Right, our 5-star QB of the week. Congrats to him. First freshman starter since Jared Goff. And the dude was spraying the ball all over the yard in a very accurate fashion. Really impressive. My biggest takeaway from the weekend, like big picture outside of the upsets and everything you just referenced, Jim, was most offenses were behind.
Yeah.
They weren't as efficient as I thought, which highlighted the ones that are. Dante Moore, folks. I've said it before. I will say it again. My good friend Jake Butt gave me some flowers on Big Ten Network earlier this week where he was like, you told me he might have the best arm in the league. And I think I said, I think he does. And I think he's a top 10 pick. And I think it might be after this year if they play 15, 16 games, if he wants to. Like, and I get the opponent, but God, did it look good. Like, to me, I go around of those. And there is a commonality, whether it's Penn State, going to Happy Valley this weekend, never called the game there, 106,000. Like, stoked is like not the, I don't know what the word is. And I get it. I played at Pitt, but there's just something cool. I grew up going to there. I'll tell you a story in a little bit, Jim. It was the first game I ever went to in my entire football life in college. But my point is that you go around, whether it's Bryce Underwood or you go to Sam Levitt, which is part of the game we got to see, Noah Fafita. Like, they were efficient game plans. Jaden Mayava, I called that one at USC. God, did he look impressive. And I get what the opponent was in a lot of the games I just referenced, but even Julian saying, like, they're just not asked to do a million things at the line of scrimmage. I just love that for a lot of the games. I went back and watched 18 games back on film, obviously the 18 that occurred in the Big Ten. I tried to watch as many as I could in real time, like was glued to it. So much so that my wife earlier this week was like, you had a home game and where are you? Like I just had that first week is such a blur.
Home
but I
game.
think, yeah. Home games are fun after the game. Leading up to the game, you're just rolling, especially week one. But my point was that, like, I think it was really, I think there's a tell there offensively, and that's what week two will be. I mean, I was joking with a buddy, like, should we have like a drinking game of like every time we hear a quote of like the biggest jump from week one to week two, like you have to take a sip of green juice or whatever it is that your drink of choice is during the season. So many are going to say it, and I think it's true. So I'm so curious to see, like, whether it's a scaled back version, but you just want your guy playing efficient. Let's look at Bryce Underwood for a second, or Malik Washington. Both guys, we've talked about Malik, Elite 11. Jim, I know you loved him. He's our oldest son Zane's favorite player just because he took a cool picture with him. He went out and started 1 for 8 and then just started dealing. Bryce was dealing. Those guys weren't asked to really get to past 1 in their progression. Like, I just think there's something to that. And I go back to when I was at SC with Pete and Reggie and all those talented players when they were young. Even like Dwayne Jarrett, the receiver, was give him 2 routes. Reggie ran an angle route and a wheel route. That was it. And you know how many times he caught those? Like, a lot, and no one touched him. Dwayne ran a slant and a fade and then a double move. Like, it was just like, get him to play fast. And I think to your point of like, a coach told me this earlier this week. They're like, I think college football is watered down. And I can't disagree with that after week one, because of how many times in a broadcast did you hear a version of 42, 55, 64 new players? I mean, look at the Carolina game. Like it's nearly impossible unless it is as healthy as Oregon and Ohio State, and like that culture is just so tight and embedded and strong. I think we're going to see that, which I think will lead to tighter games in conference play. And then hopefully teams coming together once we get to the playoff. And that's when, of course, college football will peak.
Yeah, I think it's that you hit the nail on the head, because I was going to say the same thing as I'm reading through game note after game note after game note. And it's like each team is highlighting, 45 new players, 55 new players. But like, there's no real way to build the continuity that you need to look like an efficient team going into the season that way. I mean, it's just not. I mean, it's just a reality. I mean, you look at some teams starting quarterbacks that weren't even with the team in spring practice. I mean, you look at Purdue, that actually worked out all right for them, because he was with Purdue before, and then he transferred to North Carolina for the spring, and then he transferred back after the spring, and then started and had over 300 yards. But I think an overall continuity is just not there in the sport. And I think what you're going to start seeing kind of more and more often is these first couple of weeks are almost like the NFL preseason, and where you're trying to get up to speed with your team before conference play starts. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no question that Texas is a great team. Arch Manning is probably a very good quarterback. He didn't have a very great game, obviously, in that one. Got a lot of criticism for that. But he also probably had way too much praise going into that game without having actually really done much on the field before that. So I think as you start to see a little bit more and more continuity, you'll start to see who the real teams are. But I also think that it's going to come down, like when you start seeing teams like Penn State this year that has a lot of returning starters and a lot of seniors, those are the teams to really keep your eye on. And I think that those are because they're already hit the ground running. They're not feeling each other out right now. They know who they are. And yes, they've struggled in the big games over James Franklin's tenure there. However, I think if they have the advantage, Ohio State and Oregon might be more talented than Penn State, but with Penn State's continuity, I think gives them an advantage for this season. Maybe not so once we get to the playoffs, but I think in the regular season, that's going to kind of shine through.
I am looking for a stat here that was amazing that Guy Haberman is all over, and I can't find it, so I apologize, but I'll get it for you in the Y Option newsletter. But it was like, I think it's 14, 14, 14 official count of Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State returning starters. And I think they would count like 20 because tourists like Liam Clifford started a handful of games, but he didn't start the first one this year, whatever it is. Like, you know how that goes.
Right, yeah.
Go to Jim's Substack, by the way, if you want to like understand numbers. Can we give that a plug? Because it's pretty. Sure. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Well, I just read game notes. Like, shout out to the SIDs across the country who put in all the work. Obviously, they're always going to highlight the positive on the team. That's their job, to put out all the positive. I mostly stick to the positive. Every now and again, I get a little negative dig in there, but it's not really. It's more so just trying to put the season into context for these teams. But so about that stat on Substack, if you go to Y Option, it's recommended on there, so you can find it all, and it's all kind of interconnected. But I read game notes, both the post game notes, and thank you to all the schools that put their post game notes on their website. Thank you. Amazing. But every team puts out their weekly release. Some teams earlier than others. You just go through there and you're finding the interesting tidbits. Like I was just reading UCF's game notes. They won their season opener, so that's now 14 straight wins under Scott Frost for UCF.
Look at you.
Pulling it back. Fun little nugget there. But yeah, I mean, just kind of circling back on the poll thing, you look at the overreaction to what happened. I saw so much conversation, and a lot of it is contrived, about who should be the number one team this week. Oh, it should be Ohio State because they beat the number one team in the country. Oh, it should be LSU because they won at Clemson. A road game is more important than a home game, and or Penn State. There were still 7 people that voted Penn State as the number one team this week. I think it was 20 something the week before. All 3 of them are fine answers, and you know what? It doesn't matter right now because they unfortunately or unfortunately, the AP poll only is there for fodder at the beginning of the season at this point. Because when you're in the committee, and this is how it was, I'm curious as to see as they've changed kind of the way that they look at things this year. When they're looking about top 25 wins, they're not really looking at what the team was ranked at the time of the game. They're looking at, okay, what is that? They're going through as a blank slate, which is I think how you should approach even as an AP voter, a blank slate every week. Who are the best teams? I don't care if this team was 2 last week and 1. That doesn't mean that they can't drop because someone else looks better than them. Like, just use your own eyes and opinions to actually come up with thoughts instead of just trying to follow a formula.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Okay, a couple quick thoughts on that, and let's get ahead to what we got coming up this weekend. One is I'm so curious about if the numbers of these roster of new faces over the course of the next few years changes with revenue sharing, with potential contracts. I mean, the way that it works, everybody's clear. Every player who has been offered a contract with a school, like it's more than a scholarship, a financial agreement from the 20.5 million in revenue share, pending whatever school wants to do, blah, 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 blah. They have gotten that in writing now. They cannot sign that until signing day, which I think is interesting. So the offer is there. They have gotten that. I think it was August 1st or early August where recruits got that. And then they look at it. So I wonder if more players will stay for multiple years because within these contracts, there's clearly incentives to stay. So I'm curious, Jim, moving forward, if there is that, because everybody's gonna be getting a healthy amount of money. And I think these coaches, like when this whole NIL transfer thing started, I can't tell you how many coaches were like, man, we just got to like get up to speed X's and O's wise. It's almost like you don't even know them anymore. Now, the last 2 years has been the opposite. It's been like, we just got to know them so much more and get them to believe and trust in the community and the culture within the walls of our facility. And then we'll get to scheme. It's been really cool, honestly, to see that turn, because it's been a total turn and acceptance and embracing of the reality and not casting any blame. Like, that's just what the scenario is. So I think if I project it out, I think we'll see less roster turnover 2 years from now than what we have heard through the opening weekend of the season. Let's pray. I hope it's going to be something good for the game. In addition to the poll, I'm with you. Like, it doesn't really matter. You can argue all day long. The SEC will argue, and that's fine. I think Ohio State and what they've done is clearly extremely impressive with what they lost and what they did last year. So you just got to kind of wear that. So everybody take a breath. My question is, as we look at this week, here we have like every team, to your point, who's lost a game still has hope. And within the locker rooms, they're like, let's go take a run. To me, I'm fascinated with the psychology of if you lose. Let's just say BYU Stanford. I wouldn't pick Stanford in the game. So how are you going to navigate the psyche of a program in like a 1-year deal with Frank Reich? Like that's really that is the challenge. That is the task. And I think one coaches lean into. They know that. I'd say the same thing. Who did Fresno? An impressive win. Oregon State, San Diego State against a Wazoo team. Congrats, Jimmy Rogers, on your first win as a coach for the Cougs in the Pac-12. But that to me is like a really cool dance, especially for the group of 5. And then lastly, I would say props to Miami. Like, props to Mario Cristobal in that win. That was the most impressive thing I saw over the weekend. And then last, I'll just put a bow on what you said about doesn't really matter about the top 25. I don't think you watched our open to the USC game. Within it, guy was like, this is the 5th time in, I think, 60 years, something like that. SC wasn't ranked in the preseason top 25. And my response was, because no one's seen them. No AP voter has seen a practice. They didn't have a spring game. So like, we're also in the world where like week 1, week 0 rankings meet absolutely squat, because the amount of spring games I can count on 2 hands that have actually occurred in major college football over the last offseason.
Yeah, I mean,
Rant over.
yeah, no, because and even if you did see their spring game, that doesn't even mean
Yeah,
those are the
that's a
guys
good
that are
point.
there.
Yeah,
That are there. I mean, that's kind of the
yeah,
part of the reason why they're not doing it. Because like, how do you have a spring game when like I always remember that in our years working for the Pac-12, it was like you wouldn't even know maybe a week out like what the quote unquote format of the game was going to be because it was like okay, we only have 7 healthy offensive linemen, so we need to
right.
do this for this
Yeah.
game. So you really never, and more so now. The one thing that I do know though, and I would not recommend, is to ever talk about the other school's finances. So I don't know
Oh,
if you
Oregon's
saw.
gonna put it on OK State. Coach Gundy,
Yeah,
bless your heart. But I mean, I caught my first year broadcasting was Brandon Whedon in Oklahoma State. We had a game there. He's been awesome. Like, I know a lot of our friends have worked there and know him and rave about him. He's not afraid to speak his mind,
no,
and neither is Dan Lanning.
no.
And I kind of loved his response because it was very matter of fact. And we know who the better team is. And you're going into Autzen. Like, it won't be a cakewalk by any stretch for Oregon. It's going to be a very competitive week 2 game. But I don't know if I see that pedal coming off the gas, folks.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mean, to all the Oregon detractors who always bring up Nike and Phil Knight, there's something to that. Obviously, like
For sure.
Nike puts a lot of money into that. Oregon puts a lot of money into their football program. But of all the schools in the country to talk about money, I mean, T Boone Pickens Stadium, like
Yeah.
how much
Oh, yeah.
money has T Boone, posthumously now put into that program. So it was kind of funny. It was just like, come on, dude, like you're really kind of opening the door for just a
I
bunch
think a
of
lot
money.
of coaches say that. I mean, I get it when it's like an FCS or a group of 5 playing up, and you're like, yeah, they got the look at just like the number associated with their players and how much money. Like, I get it because you're trying to remind like a broadcast crew of the media like it's a different world. And 2 things can be true. Like, it is the greatest team sport, and we've seen upsets, and we'll continue to see upsets. I just don't like it when it's at the powerful level because here we are. Like, if we're just going to be real about it, on the table, at least up for discussion, is automatic qualifiers. Miami's win would say nope. TCU's game against Carolina, I get it. They're both from non-SEC and Big Ten powers. Would say like no, like those leagues aren't going to agree to that publicly. Like, they're never going to be like, give me 2 spots because we're lesser than. How many commissioners have said? I mean, that is the truth coming out of the Big 12 and the ACC. So to hear Mike Gundy say that, if I'm in the Big 12, I'm saying, come on, man. Like, you can't see. You're basically admitting that our top is not as good as their top. And there's a world where Oklahoma State, has been favored or played in huge games in the history of the Big 12. Like, it's not like they're a doormat in the Big 12. It's not like they're a new member of the Big 12. In fact, they're probably the oldest member. I just take a guess in the Big 12. They lost Texas and OU. Like, since then, like, who's the oldest member
Them
of
in
that league?
Kansas and yeah, probably them in
I
Kansas and
would
Iowa State,
guess.
just off the top of my head, without.
Yeah. So I just think if I'm an alum, if I'm a member of that league, I'm saying like, come on, man. Like, why are we doing that? Because you're basically saying we are less than when I hear that.
Yeah.
When I hear that. And that maybe that's a shot at his donors. Maybe that's trying to drum up some appeal. Who knows what it is? Mike Gundy's a smart dude, but I don't like it for the health of the Big 12. I don't think that's a smart move. Like, Arizona played at USC. Brent Brennan is not saying that. And
No.
he shouldn't say that.
No.
Like, he might, and there is to me, a disparity among what Arizona's players are making and then what Oregon's players are making. Of course. But I don't think he put it out there.
Yeah.
That's my take.
And I think one last thing before we wrap it up, like looking ahead to this weekend, like week 1 had all these premier matchups. And I'm almost kind of contradict what I said in the beginning here because you can overlook, a win or a loss in those games. This week, there's not nearly those level of matchups. So if you're a team in the top 25, like Michigan, Oklahoma is the one kind of two, power schools ranked in the top 25 going up against each other. But otherwise, if you're a team in the top 25 this week, like you better take care of business because it is Cupcake City all across the country. Whether you're playing Austin P or Kent State or Kennesaw State or
Hey, Kennesaw State, Mark Mattioli, the former head coach of the Musketeers, almost had an upset. He's going to
he
Indiana
did have
this
almost an upset.
weekend. I think he had 10 points.
Indiana needs to look better though. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I didn't watch,
Yeah.
like I said, I was flipping around a lot. I watched mostly kind of parts of the first half. They need to play better in week 2.
All right, my last final thought, and we're going to get out of here. And thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel. Check us out on social. We're trying to do more and more to feed where you are sweating. The epicenter is whyoption.com. I think it's a huge week in the Big Ten. You referenced the game of the week around the country and Michigan going to OU. I want to see Bryce Underwood play behind the sticks. I'm so curious to see what he does. Everything for a freshman is for the first time. And your earlier point, if they lose, it's not over. It's a hell of a team. I was really impressed with Chip Lindsey, former OC at Arizona State under Ty Graham back in the day, did.
Facts.
In addition to that, I look at Michigan State hosting Bill O'Brien and Boston College. That's a really big game for that team. Illinois, I'll be calling their game at Indiana in 2+ weeks now, September 20th. They go to Duke. I think that's a really impressive game. Like, can they come out of that one? Can they win that one? I think that's an important one to note. And then we reference Oregon, Oklahoma State. So I think it's actually a pretty impressive weekend because two of those four, are on the road. So I'm looking forward to watching, like, what does the Big Ten do in this regard in week 2 of the season. We'll cover that all weekend long. I will be at Penn State all weekend long. I can't wait, Jim. I'm going to see people I grew up with, and I'll finish with a little story because we both have ties to this story. We'll cut you loose here at Y Option. 1999, Arizona, your Arizona Wildcats, top 5 team in the country. They go to the Pigskin Classic kickoff at State College. Dear friend of mine named Ryan Tierney says, hey, you want to go to the game with me and my dad? At the time, I am begging schools to look at me, begging Pitt, Penn State, anybody for an offer. I want to go play big-time college football. At the time, I think I might have been committed to Princeton. Like, I was on my way to that. So that's where I think I was going to go. And that's not a flex on academics.
Hey, Ivy League's flex. Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah. To that point, we pull into the stadium. I sit down in that stadium, and it is bonkers. And they drill your Wildcats. The story that is seared into my soul, LeVar Arrington, whose son, by the way, is on the team. So we'll talk about that on Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern time at State College. He gets injured, leaves the stadium, goes out the tunnel. The air leaves at the time was probably 90,000. It's over 106,000 now fans in that stadium. And where we were positioned, you can see the tunnel. This is, I'm pretty sure, mid-third quarter. All of a sudden, number 11 sticks. LeVar Arrington comes out. You can kind of see him in the shadows. He's got his pants on with pads in it, but just a jersey, no shoulder pads, no helmet. And it was, as he was saying, it was almost like how the wave starts in a stadium. A section saw him, a bigger section saw him, and all of a sudden it made its way around the stadium. And I heard that roar, Jim, and I literally whispered to myself, Yogi, you're going to play major college football. And it was done. I was going wherever they would let me climb a fence and find my way in. Went to Pitt, went 1-0 against Penn State, just putting it out there. And then away my college career went. But it was because of that moment in Happy Valley at Beaver Stadium. And I can't wait to go back there. Been there for training camp a few times. Been to that stadium a few times, as I referenced, going to games or recruiting in high school. But calling a game at like the school that has really captured the state I grew up in is like a really cool full circle moment. I'm going to see so many friends that have season tickets that now have kids. And I'm pumped, man. Like, I can't wait to fly to PA from LA later on this week.
Yeah, reverse title there.
Yeah, reverse title. That's right. Check out PA to LA on Amazon. All right, we've done promoting everything we possibly can here. Thank you for the time. Thank you to Luke. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. I think he's the most interesting coach in all of college football. Big love to our presenting sponsor, 76, keeping you on the go so you never miss a beat. And check out our newsletter. I think you're really going to like what we wrote this past week. I'll write more on the long flight home from Pennsylvania next Sunday right here at yoption.com. Peace.